This is Charles Dayton with Tribal Strategy. We want to review the 4 phases of project management as it relates to tribal program and department types of projects. The first phase is the initiation phase. This is the initial planning for the project itself, and we go through a series of questions to ensure before we put all these resources into something, it's the right kind of project. So some of these questions include the strategic alignment. How does this align with the strategy of our department, of the broader organization? And then being very clear about what are the deliverables of this project. What is it supposed to achieve for the organization? Third is who's going to participate in the team itself. We want to make sure that the team represents the perspectives, the skills, the experience required to actually implement a successful project. And within these teams, we have fundamental roles. Who's going to sponsor the project? Who's going to lead or coordinate the project? And among the team members, how do we ensure that the experience mix enables us to ask the right questions? Now, the project is not successful unless it meets the stakeholder needs. So we need to determine who has a stake in the project and how do they define success. Again, a lot of our deliverables are generated from this dialogue. It can be interviews or assessments, some kind of interaction, and get very clear about what those outcomes need to look like. Another thing we need to look at is what are the risks to the project? If the project was to fail, what would be some of the reasons it would fail, and how do we mitigate or prepare for those risks? Ultimately, too, we need to consider at the very beginning, how do we communicate the different elements of the project? What method would we be using? So who needs to know what by when to stay engaged and provide the appropriate level of support for these kinds of projects? Budgeting and funding, and ultimately also the question of how we evaluate this in the end. The next phase of project management is the design phase. And again, quite often this is when we're pulling the summary from the initiation phase. We're making sure that we have a preliminary approval of the project, and then we might have some kind of grant kickoff. A key element of the design phase is creating what we call a work breakdown structure. And this is where we identify the tasks, the subtasks, and this is used to help us estimate the time, resources, and the cost, and also develop a calendar. So this is what this would look like in an online system to actually track that project. We also need to make sure that we have a system for procuring the materials associated with the project, some kind of quality plan. And in the design phase, this is where we're also looking at a more detailed risk management plan. Again, we're looking at the estimated likelihood and impact of potential risk and a more detailed mitigation plan. At this point, also, we're looking at what's our communication plan, making sure the stakeholders involved, and when are we going to check in? What are the major milestones associated with this project as we're moving forward? The third phase is the execution. This is where the work actually happens. And broadly, we're looking at how do we manage and control the various elements. So much of this falls upon the project lead or the project coordinator to make sure that the tasks are getting executed, the quality plan is being done, the budgeting is occurring, the flow of information is happening, and so forth. And then once the project is completed, to ensure that the project has achieved its deliverables, that there's some learning from the process, we have the assessment phase. So this is make sure we have the final acceptance, the deliverables are reviewed, we transfer the ownership of the deliverables to the new owner. So for example, we're putting a program together that all the elements are in place to ensure the program is supported. Make sure that we have closure from a financial, legal, administrative standpoint. Create some kind of report. Sometimes it's referred to an after action report. What do we learn by doing this? How do we streamline this, improve it in the future? What were the lessons learned, and so forth? And then making sure that the documentation is developed and recorded, so ultimately the learnings and the success ideally is recognized in the planning process. So this is the 4 phases of project management for tribal programs and departments. If you have additional questions, please contact us at charles@tribalstrategy.org.